We've all heard it. Never settle. Don't accept less than what you absolutely deserve. And it sounds empowering, but in reality, never settle is one of the most toxic ideas in dating today. Why? Because this mindset turns dating into extraction. How much can I get out of this person? How much can they give to me? And to really pull a veil over the truth of real relationships, this concept does work a bit in early dating when the masks are still on and there's a lot of incentive to be at our best, to present ourselves in the very best light because we're trying to win the other person. But it's especially destructive in long-term relationships where we actually see each other for who we really are, because that's when never settle collapses. Hi, I'm Madalena, and this is You Reclaimed. Around here, we spend a lot of time talking about how we reclaim our lives back from the grips of childhood trauma, from emotional dysregulation, and from anxiety. And we do this ongoing exercise because we want to live our lives on our own terms. I hope you stick around. Before we get into it, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any future videos. And if you're finding this content helpful, please give it a like. It really helps the channel grow. Never settle encourages us to treat people like products. And as you know, products can always be replaced. You see this in your feed every single day. Upgrade your leggings, upgrade your phone, upgrade your life while you're at it. At the first sign of something being obsolete, we're told to throw it away and just replace it, reach for something better, more suitable. It's very obvious that this same logic has seeped into dating. So now we focus on maximizing the features or the benefits of this other person. Someone is great as long as they bring the most benefit to our own lives. They're only worthy if their flaws stay hidden. Otherwise, how could they possibly be the best we deserve? Now, don't get me wrong, healthy relationships do have conditions, and I've talked about that in previous videos. We all have non-negotiables, like wanting children, wanting a shared lifestyle that we can both agree on, wanting a partner who can actually repair conflict. Those things matter. Those are part of compatibility. But never settle twists this idea into something else. Never settle says you're only worthy if you never disappoint me, if you never slip, if you never show your flaws. And no real relationship and no real person can survive anything like that. This kind of mindset creates a predatory consumer energy in relationships. You keep me happy, you meet all of my needs, or I move on. And the same goes the other way around, obviously. I keep you happy, I meet all of your needs, or you have every right to move on. And the result of this awesome deal we've made, sky-high entitlement, and very little curiosity about who the other person really is. Because if I expect you to be everything that I deserve, then where's the space for you to be everything that you deserve to be for yourself? Who are you really serving by being in relationship with me? Yourself? Your own growth? Your own experience of being alive and being in relationship with me? Or are you only here to please me? That might sound like a nice concept, but it doesn't hold up long term. No person can forever sacrifice themselves at the altar of being all that the other person deserves, nor should they have to. This kind of mindset also makes bonds incredibly fragile because very few relationships can survive constant reassessment of this sort. Are you still everything I deserve today? Are you still giving me the most that you can give me? There's no relating in that. It's performance, and it turns relationships into never-ending auditions that you have to keep showing up at. And that's where masks have to stay on forever, because the moment they slip, well, we're no longer everything the other person deserves. The first few years of a relationship feel easy for most people It's pleasant and pretty easy to start relationships. There's novelty, there's lots of projection and hope and optimism. Everyone is on best behavior because everyone is thinking they're getting a good deal, right? It's super easy to believe that you didn't settle because your partner feels like the perfect choice. And hopefully you do too to them. But after 2, 3, 4 years, when familiarity sets in, that's when we really start to notice differences between us. We get triggered by old wounds, our old wounds. Unhealed baggage rises to the surface, and eventually it becomes obvious that this other person beside me might not actually be here to meet every single one of my needs and give me everything I deserve. And this is where never settle does the most damage. This idea of never settle has a sneaky way of turning normal friction into proof that obviously you've chosen wrong. Because if I had chosen right, this person wouldn't trigger me so much, would they? Which means that you can very easily pack your bags, put on your fancy best behavior mask, and repeat the cycle with somebody else. That's why that cycle is so tempting. And 3 years later, guess what? You're faced with the same sobering up phase, only with a brand new person. And you can call it avoid settling, but a lot of the time, what we're really doing when we repeat the cycle is avoiding seeing the other person for who they are, and then having to do the hard and often complicated and tedious work of trying to accept this other person exactly there, in that uncomfortable, imperfect place they're at. Now, let me pause to clarify something important. I'm not saying that you should stay in relationships where your true conditions are unmet, where your true needs go unmet. If you want children, for example, and your partner never will, that's just base incompatibility. If you need emotional safety and your partner refuses to take part in any kind of conflict repair, that's also incompatibility. Those are basic conditions and they matter very much. I'm also not saying you should stay in abusive relationships. What we're talking about here is relationships where everything is relatively calm and cool, but you're always left with this nagging sense that someone out there could be better. And you might be right. Somebody out there probably is better. There's always a better match. But never settle doesn't deal with conditions. It confuses being triggered by your partner in a normal and predictable way with actually being incompatible. And it trains us to run the moment that someone stops being perfect, or that someone has to actually relax and stop performing to get our attention at all times. That's a really great way to go through an entire life, telling ourselves that every single person we try to date sucks. And at some point, we have to turn that mirror around, no? But this concept is one of the big reasons that so many marriages and long-term relationships collapse. Because eventually the I'm so great and wonderful mask comes off. And instead of accepting the flawed, real, messy human in front of us, we decide that we've settled. When in reality, we've just hit that point where real understanding and acceptance and growth could happen. And this is not to say that presenting yourself at your best at the beginning of a relationship is bad or that there's something wrong with it, because it's a normal and passing phase of any relationship. Some of that has to be stripped away so you can actually relax and be comfortable in a relationship long term. Some of it also has to stay in place. Too many people drop all niceties and politeness and decency and imagine that they can let their worst behavior out and be accepted for it. That doesn't work either. There's a fine balance there that good relationships reach. So what actually works better than this idea of never settling? Doing our best to choose real compatibility from the beginning, trying to be as genuine and real as we can be ourselves, and in this way encouraging the other person to do the same by being accepting and being open to who they are so that we can reveal ourselves and see each other as well as possible in the beginning, not getting lost in fantasy. not focusing on performing for each other like we're well-dressed monkeys. And choosing for compatibility means choosing based on shared values, choosing based on similar conflict styles, entering relationships with people who show a willingness to actually repair problems and conflicts and misunderstandings, desire for each other, both physically and emotionally, meaning we actually want to get into the inner world of each other, to know what makes the other person tick and to know what makes the other person who they are. That takes willingness. Not everyone is willing to do that. Not everyone is even interested in that. These are the conditions that matter. They don't make someone perfect, but they do make relating long-term possible and even pleasant. When you build in this way on compatibility, you're not asking your partner to be a flawless product or you might replace them at any moment. You're asking them to show up as a co-creator of something. And that means that you also have to show up. You can't hide behind your mask forever either. So this is where vulnerability becomes the gateway. Because when you reveal yourself, not just in the first honeymoon years, but years into the relationship, as you keep growing together, you invite your partner to do the same. That's when you actually get to know each other. So the real question isn't, is this person everything I deserve? The question is, are we both willing to relate to each other in a way that makes each of our lives better, easier, richer? The reality is that even in the best matched relationships, we will fail each other, and sometimes quite miserably. We will trigger each other. That's inevitable. In fact, you're most likely to choose long-term partners who trigger you in the best, most exciting ways. And we will reach the wall where we realize that we can't change the other person. But the point isn't at that juncture to find someone who never triggers you. You're not going to find that. The point is to find someone willing to sit with that. At the worst of times, that's what it really takes, just sitting with it. When there's nothing to do and there's no way to change it, just sitting with it. Without telling yourself that it's because you've settled, and because you settled, that's why your partner will not be everything you want them to be. And your partner has to be willing to do the same. Not because they have to, not because it's less than they deserve, but because they also want to. Now you have two people who are willing. The truth is that shopping for a flawless partner who is all that we deserve is not actual empowerment. It's a trap. Because what we actually deserve is not someone who never triggers us. What we deserve is someone who stays with us while we work through those triggers. That's not settling, that's adult relating. How do you feel about this? Have you ever felt like you settled? Have you been able to work through that, or did it always turn out badly? And if you enjoyed this video, check out my other video called Unconditional Love, Why It Doesn't Keep Relationships Together. That video connects directly to what we've been talking about here. And if you enjoy this kind of content, hit subscribe, like this video, and perhaps share it with someone who needs it today.